What's happening, everybody? This is Adi. Happy Sunday. Without any Olympiacos football, of course, only have the Greek national team and a couple of other things to talk about. I'm laughing today. I'm laughing. I don't know if you guys watched the same thing I just watched, but I was tuning in before going live to that disaster class of an interview by Panathinaikos president Yanni Alafouzos, literally blaming the entire world for Panathinaikos' failures except for himself. Apparently, nobody else is to blame for this. So it's he takes none of it. It's everybody else. Quoted Margaret Thatcher, accused Olympiacos of taking a title from him, but then at the same time says that they gave up the title because Jovanovic didn't want a COVID postponement. It's amazing. It's truly amazing. I do recommend you guys watch it if you want to laugh because it is absolutely hysterical. Absolutely hysterical. And I just have to say, I feel terrible for all the Panathinaikos fans out there because that interview would not make anybody feel better about the state of the club. So anyway, moving on because there's plenty of more important things to get to besides the misfortunes of our green friends. But before we do, don't forget, everybody, to like and subscribe. We have a couple dozen of you guys that are already tuning in here, and you may have noticed there were two different links to the live show. So there's something new for the streaming platform we use. They are optimizing it for mobile as well as desktop. So depending on the device you have, it may be easier for the vertical optimized stream. Otherwise, you can use the regular one. But all things considered, please like and subscribe to help us continue to find more red and white fans. Again, today we're not going to be talking about a game because there was no Olympiacos game, just the Greek national team. But we're going to talk about a few things. So like and subscribe, help us to continue to find more red and white fans. And for those of you that want to find more ways, because we get a lot of messages of people asking how they can support us, you can join Patreon, join the WhatsApp group for just $1 a month. It's probably the best dollar you will spend. You can't get anything for $1 a month these days, but you can get a lot of entertainment from the WhatsApp group. That I promise you. We also have extra content. We just introduced for the first time Martial Mondays. So your favorite French co-host will be delivering the takes that he delivers to the WhatsApp group, similar, but in video format, every Monday. So if you want extra content, you can see Martial in addition to the other content that we offer you, in addition to what we do on YouTube and on podcast format as well. Now, guys, for those of you that are tuning in, let me know where you're tuning in from. And additionally, if you have any questions, comments, help us keep the conversation going. It looks like I'm rolling solo again. So any additional commentary I can get, any engagement you guys give me will really, really help to keep the conversation moving. So please tell me where you guys are chiming in from. I love to see where you guys are tuning in, and support us on Patreon at patreon.com/Theros7International. Now, some quick news points before we get into the show. The basketball team had a double week for EuroLeague. They won one and then lost to Milano, unfortunately, by 1 point. It was very tight at the end. Vesenkov misses a game winner, unfortunately. Looks like a play that was designed for him, unfortunately, and why the ball was given to him when he was not having a great game, and Dorsey or even Alec Peters were just having fantastic performances. No one will ever know, but again, it is what it is, and the BC will continue to move on. So the women's team also played today. Guys, third straight win for the women today. Unbelievable. 10-0 again. And if you see the timestamps of the goals, it was 10-0 by halftime. Today, they beat the Valbuena Academy. So they beat former Olympiacos legend, current Olympiacos legend. He's playing for the B team. Mateo Valbuena's ladies team that is playing in the third division as well. So our ladies, our Lionesses, win 10-0. They've got 30 goals now. Well, 30 counted goals, I should say, on the season. Naya Benjamin, leading goal scorer, has 9 goals, and Kostadina Yanu has 7. So over half our goals from 2 different women on this team, 2 extraordinary women that have scored a lot and are going to do great things for our ladies. So congratulations to them. Phenomenal start for the new project. And it seems like a foregone conclusion that this team should get promoted pretty easily this season. One final announcement before we get into the real content of the show is that congratulations are in order to our 18-year-old phenom in the midfield, Christos Mouzakitis. If you guys didn't see on socials, there has been voting going on for a couple of months now for the Tutu Mercato Web Golden Boy Award. And Mouzakitis was the winner of that award, our golden boy, our golden youth product. So we're extremely proud of him, and he deserves it. He's one of the most talented midfielders of his generation right now coming up. And there's a reason why so many teams are interested in him. From Arsenal to Brighton to the Italian clubs, Milan, you name it, everybody's interested in this kid. And he will probably be the next academy product that we sell. Unfortunately, guys. So enjoy him while he's still here. Coach Mendilibar, use him while he's still here. You do not need 2 6s in your lineup, especially when we're playing in Greece. So anyway, boys and girls, we are getting ready to talk about some things for Olympiacos today. And again, if you have things that you want to chat about, if you guys want to chat about anything in particular, we already have Angie Coolin tuning in. What's up, buddy? And thank you so much for tuning in. But we're in the international break. It's November. So let's have a little bit of a chat about how the season is going based on our expectations. Now, we can look at this a couple of ways, right? We can say, okay, what did we think? Where did we think we would be at the beginning of the season? And then we can also reflect on, well, how did we do last season up until this point? So, speaking from what my expectations were at the beginning of this season, I expected Olympiacos to be in first in the league. You know, I did expect teams would be competing with us. Panathinaikos had made some investments, big investments last season. They had made some more this season. PAOK, I didn't think had a great offseason. Likewise with AEK. I wasn't super impressed. They spent money. I figured it would be close, but I expected that at this point in the season, my expectation would have been that, okay, even if we had early issues like last season, we were in first place. I expected that. We have the best depth. We have the best roster in league. The expectation was that we would be leading at this point in the season. I think really the more contentious part, because obviously we're in first place right now. We're in first place. The data-wise, we have we're the second highest goal scorer. The highest is Levadiakos. We have the highest XG, so we create the most big scoring chances, and the highest among the highest quality chances as measured by XG per shot. So some things to look at offensively. Defensively, we've allowed in the league 7 goals. So not terrible, despite the fact that at times the defense has seemed like it can be here and there. The big issues really is Europe, right? Here we are. We have now gone through our 4th match in the Champions League. We're halfway through the league phase, and we have 2 points to show for it. At the beginning of the season, we talked about what we expected from Champions League. Knockout football is what we all said, listen, you win the league, win the double, you get knockout football, even if it's just the first round of knockouts, this is a successful season. The expectation was that we would beat Pafos. Most of us expected to lose to Arsenal. Most of us expected to lose to Barcelona. And PSV, I think some people thought, okay, we could probably win this game. Most of us thought, okay, a draw would be a good result here, a decent result, and we'd be happy. I expected a draw. So to this point, my expectation from the summer was that we would be on 4 points. Unfortunately, here we are. 2 points. 2 points going into the second half of the Champions League season. And all of the pressure is now on us to win and get points out of games maybe that we did not expect we would. If we had beaten Pafos, then at this point, you would say, all right, we got 4 points, 4 games. We should beat Kairat. We need about 10 to 11 points to get out of this group. Real Madrid at home, most people probably aren't expecting anything. Maybe if you squeeze a point, you're lucky, which means you need to get 1 win then, but out of Leverkusen and Ajax, and you're good to go. So at that point, it's like, okay, this is doable. But now we're sitting on 2 points. And if we want to get to that 11 points, which is last season, 11 points with a decent goal differential got you into the knockout rounds. If you want 11 points, we need to win 3 of the 4 about. Or at least, 3, get 2 or get 2 wins, 2 draws. I mean, but realistically, we need to get 3 wins. We need to get 3 wins in the next 4 games for this to work. So that's a tall ask. You need to beat Bayer Leverkusen. Okay, are they having a great season? No. Changing coaches? Don't know how that'll affect us by the time we see them. Real Madrid? Probably not. Not if you're a betting man, you're not betting that we're winning that one. Maybe with the magic of the Gadaskaiki, we get another magical Mendeleev performance. See what happens. Ajax also hasn't been doing great this season. They're one of the worst teams, besides us, of course, in the Champions League, in points-wise. And then there's Kairat. So maybe you could say, okay, Ajax has been terrible this season. They're trying to bring back the former Man U manager. Oh my God, I can't believe I'm already forgetting who it was. But anyway, they're trying to bring him back because things are so bad there. Maybe you say, okay, we can get the win there. So we have to find a win then. If you expect to win against Kairat, you expect to win against Ajax, you have to find a way to win either against Real Madrid or against Leverkusen to have a chance at qualifying for the knockouts, assuming that the 11-point figure stands. Right now, the table it's competitive in the Champions League. So we're not far out from those spaces. Right now, 24th has 4 points. So we're not super far away. A win, you can't take for granted you get a win against anybody. But if you're able to get a win, right, even if it gets Real Madrid, you get that magical win on 5 points, you're probably in a decent position to then get forward. So it's a tall ask. It's a very tall ask. I've been saying that I think we get knockout football. I do believe in the magic, but if we're looking at this with a level head, our Champions League hopes, our knockout hopes are dwindling as the season has worn on. The team is beginning to look better as far as at least the press goes, as far as the performances go in Greece and in the Cup. The team is looking better. But it is a steep mountain to climb. I could not find in the last 15 years a season where we got more than 9 points. Now, of course, those were 6 games, not 8 games, but you get my meaning. I could not find a game where we got more than 9 points in a group stage or a league phase of a season. It's 3 wins is usually what we tap out at. So the fact that we need to get 3 wins now is going to be difficult. It's going to be very difficult. And history tells us that. So if we're looking at the season until now, based on our expectations, I would argue that we're a little bit disappointed. Specifically because, well, sure, we all knew Champions League is harder now. We all knew it was going to be difficult. But we expected that we would at least beat Pafos. And I think if we had won that game against them, there would be way less complaining, way less griña than there is right now, even about the performances in the league. Sure, I will agree with Jose Luis Mendeleev in comments he's had post-match and pre-match about the way we've performed, how the press has worked, and how we've had our identity in these Champions League matches. I will agree with that. And I will agree with Mendilibar that this team can compete in Champions League. But results are what matter. Results matter in the end for these. And while sure, the press has done work. The press had Barcelona on its heels. We dominated against PSV. That was our match that we lost. We let them have their second shot on target. Their only real shot of the night is the one they scored on. That's what we allowed to happen. So yes, in that sense, I agree. Sure. Even against Arsenal, where the press, we were pressing high against Arsenal. They had moments where even the journalists, the Arsenal-based journalists, the podcasters that we've spoken to, the individuals we've spoken to on that end, were all impressed with how Olympiacos pressed and how we made things difficult for them. Even though maybe it never in some way felt like they were going to lose that match. Sure, I agree with all of that in some cases. But again, the fact of the matter is we need to get the results. And we have to stop throwing some of these games away. That's the fact of the matter is. So if we're looking just face value at the season from what our expectations were at the summer to now, we're disappointed. Sure, we expected we'd be first in the league. Maybe some people thought we would be further ahead than we are now, but we're first place in the league. We're creating scoring chances. In fact, I mean, guys like Ayoub El-Kaabi have whiffed some big ones. You know, Ayoub El-Kaabi, half of his goal contributions, he's got 9 goals on the season, but 5 of them are from penalties. We've talked about this in previous shows. We've talked about this in previous social media posts, how a similar situation happened to Youssef El Arabi in his 3rd season, where the open play production and the production of opportunities where even the penalties he drew were earned penalties that he earned himself. Ayoub El-Kaabi isn't earning those penalties, and he's missing big scoring opportunities. Our biggest hope is that this isn't the start of the decline like it was for Youssef El Arabi. We're hoping that this is the start and that he'll get better in the second half of the season like he normally does. But we're disappointed. We're disappointed in the end. And we need to win the league for many reasons. And we would like to at least get a couple of wins in Champions League to keep our club coefficient high enough so that we can qualify automatically for the Champions League phase. Very important. That's very important. But bringing it back, if we're looking at a face value based on our expectations, right now we are disappointed that we don't at least have 4 points in the Champions League. Now, another way we can look at our performances and evaluate where we are is by looking at where we were last season. At this point last season, even with Europa League, where were we? How were we performing? Because so much of the conversation I've seen, whether it's on socials, whether it's in our group chat, on our live shows, anywhere, the conversation is we're no better than last year. We've regressed since last year. And if that's true, then that means we need to look at the results from last season, how we started, and are we starting better than we did last season? We can also talk about how we ended the season. But what we like to do is say, all right, how did we start the season last season? And are we starting the season better this season? And then later in the season, we'll say, okay, did we end the season better? Did we improve overall? But right now, have we improved over how we started the season last season? So let's take a look at where we stand right now on the table. So as I mentioned before, right now we're in first place and we have 25 points from 10 games with a goal differential of plus 16. So 25 points, plus 16 goal differential, 7 goals against, and I believe it was 23 goals for. So not bad. Not bad at all. Well, here's where we were by match week 10 in the Super League last season. 18 points. Remember, we dropped. We had a couple of draws. We had a loss, an early loss as well, to Aris. And we didn't even play all of our derbies up until this point last season as well. We've already played all of our derbies once already, early, 10 match weeks in. And last season, we also had a +7 goal differential. If you guys remember, and you go back to the live shows or the commentary that we had, the biggest problem last season was that we could not score the opportunities that were coming. And that included Ayub El-Kabi as well. Last season, through 10 match weeks in the Greek League, we had almost the exact same XG as we do this season. It was 18.5 last season. It's 18.55 this season. Almost identical. Now, what's the difference? Where are the differences? Same XG. Some of you say, okay, it's the same. It just means our finishing is better, which in a way it can be. But the big difference is this season. Last season, we had more overall chances, more opportunities, more shots. But this season, we have less shots, less overall scoring opportunities, but the scoring opportunities are higher quality, more big scoring chances, higher average shot quality as measured by XG per shot. Those are the differences this season. So if we're judging by the performance in the league, it has improved. It has improved just by the fact that we're making better opportunities. Even if we're not making as many total, we're making better big scoring chances and more of them. And we're getting the points because we're finally finishing. Sure, Ayub El-Kabi is in the same situation he was last season, not scoring the things he should be scoring. But there's people around him that can score. Mehdi Taremi, as terrible as this guy has looked in Champions League, has been nothing but clinical in Greece. Roman Yaremchuk's been back for 160 minutes and has 2 goals. We have goals coming from Chiquinho. We have goals coming from elsewhere. So, based on how we're doing in Greece, we're starting off better than we did last season. And that speaks somewhat to the transfers and what we've brought in. Now, we also can talk about what's been done in Europe. We talked about how already it's disappointing what we see in Europe so far this season. Not where we wanted to be. But if we look at where we were last season, if we look at the first 4 games of the season, of the league phase in Europa League, we had the first loss against Lyon. So we lost the first game, 2-0. Injuries, terribles, the only time we've seen Mendilibar change his philosophy for a game. Then we turn around, we beat Braga. We turn around and we beat Malmö. That was a 1-0 game. Then after that, I believe it was a draw to Rangers. And then after that, we had the draw to FCSB, Bucharest. So we had more points at this point, but if you guys remember, we're looking down the barrel and we're saying, oh my goodness gracious, we have our last 2 games of the season. Our last 2 games of the season after this point. We're talking the first 6 games we play. We have our last 2 games. Guys, we have Porto and we have Qarabağ, and we've only got 8 points. At the time, people didn't think we could beat Porto. We had never won away at Porto. We had wasted opportunities that we should have had, wins we should have had in Europa League. And if we had lost to Porto and lost to Qarabağ, there was no knockout football. None. So in the last 2 matches of the season, the last 2 matches of the Europa League phase, we beat Porto, we beat Qarabağ, and we go from potentially not having a knockout place to then making the top 8 of the league phase. So that was the situation last year in that respect. So remember, it wasn't roses, and we were in Europa League in weaker competition. Remember who I told you we played? Lyon. The first 4 games: Lyon, Braga, Malmö, and then it was Rangers. Those were the first 4 games. Who are our first 4 games this year? Pafos, Arsenal, Barcelona, PSV. So all things considered, we're not in too different of a place than we were last season. We were worse in the league. And sure, by total points, yeah, we were better. We were better in the Europa League now, but this is the Champions League. So 2 points instead of 3, 4, 5 from the first 4 games of the season, if I counted that right. 0 from Lyon, 3 from Braga, 3 from Malmö. So 6, and then 1 more from Rangers. So 7 points. 7 points from the first 4 matches. So we were better on a total points outlook, but we weren't exactly comfortable given what the rest of the season was looking like as we continued from where we were. Looking at that all together, guys, and then also looking at the transfers, I don't necessarily believe I can say that things are worse than they were last season. We're in a more difficult competition this season compared to last season. We're in the Champions League. We're doing better in Greece than we were last season. And remember the discord with the transfers that we had last season. We brought in a whole bunch of last-minute transfers in September, and the players that we brought in, guys like Oliveira, we brought in Willian. Remember that? So we brought in those players very last minute, and nobody was happy. Nobody was happy with them. Willian ended up being a bust, one of the most expensive wages, the most expensive wage on the team, bust. We didn't get Podence back, which a lot of people wanted. No Fortunis, of course, for various reasons. Oliveira didn't do anything for us. We brought in Yusuf Yazici. He tears his ACL within 10 minutes of his first appearance. And the production offensively was not there because we didn't have the wingers. Gelson Martins was one of our most productive players. And he was hurt. He would get hurt. We know Gelson. He would get hurt continuously. So if I'm looking at the transfers that we had last season, right? Veld, we brought in Pirola. I can go through the whole list, but you get my point. And then we look at the transfers we brought in this summer. The big money transfer, of course, was Gabriel Strefezza, 5 million with a 3 million bonus. Gustavo Mancha, the center back we got from Brazil, 4.5 million. Diogo Nascimento, 4 million. Scipioni, about 4 million. Mehdi Taremi, we ended up paying 2 million to Inter for him. We brought in Remy Cabella for free. He was the first transfer we made before the window even started. Daniel Podence, loan, coming in from his team in Saudi Arabia. I already forget who he was playing for in Saudi. Look at those transfers and then tell me, when you look at the players we brought in last summer, and tell me that the business we did this summer wasn't better. Our big money transfer, our biggest transfer last summer was Christopher Veld. We all saw how that turned out. Lorenzo Pirola, solid transfer. Costinha, he was bought in the winter, came in the summer. So Costinha. We brought in Bruno Onyemaichi, our current backup left back. Roman Yaremchuk. We had, so technically we had bought Hefte Betancourt, who was, he came this summer, but we bought him in January. And then, of course, I already brought up Willian. We brought in Danny Garcia. We brought in Sergio Oliveira. We had Marco Stamenic on loan. We brought David Carmo on loan from Nottingham Forest. We got Andre Horta back. That was in the winter. I already brought up Yusuf Yazici. So you look at all those transfers and then look at what we brought in this summer. The situation was obviously much different with the whole swath of contracts that were ending or loans that we had to get back. And you look at the business that was done this summer, and it was more measured. I would say we brought in better pieces this summer than last summer. right? Christopher Veld, I know most of you believe he was a palto, he's a coat, but if we're looking at right now the transfers we have that we brought in so far this season, do we have any player that we brought in, any of our transfers this season? I'll read them for you again. I have the whole list of the transfers we brought this summer. And tell me if there's even a single player that you think is this guy has to go in the winter. Gabriel Strefezza, Gustavo Mancha, Diogo Nascimento, Lorenzo Scipioni, Mehdi Taremi, Remy Cabella Daniel Podence. Whereas last season, people were ready to ship off Willian and Sergio Oliveira, as well as Christopher Veld, before January or December even came. So looking at that, in and of itself, I would say, by far, the way this season has gone to November is better than it was last season. We have made better transfers, even if you guys don't like all of them, and we'll discuss the individual transfers in a second. But we are doing better now, results, transfers, overall, than last season. So then I believe that we're improving. We have improved from last season to this season, even as frustrating as some things that we've seen. Now, before we talk about the transfers, we got some comments here, so I want to touch on some of these before I go ahead and move on. Lakis Gavalas, individual quality against Leverkusen is way ahead of PSV. You're not wrong. You're not wrong. I don't disagree there. Hey, Duprize, Kronia Pola, buddy, happy birthday. Happy birthday. Thank you for tuning in on your birthday. It is an honor to be a part of your birthday, my friend. Elias 12 GM, this team can compete, but we have to stop throwing away games. No goals to Pafos, red card to Barcelona, free kick to PSV. Yes. It's the typical Champions League nonsense that Olympiacos has to deal with. Socrates, Nick here, the Alafusos interview is pure comedy. Yeah, man, I haven't laughed that hard in a while. Hysterical. Ilya asking me if I think we can compete against Real Madrid like we did against Barcelona. Yeah, man. Look, I'm going to be honest with you. I don't think we'll win, but I think we'll make it interesting. As long as the refs don't get involved like they did against Barcelona, I think we'll keep it interesting, even though I think the individual quality that they have is, of course, better than ours, but I think we still give them a run. Mendilibar is not going to change how he plays, but I think we'll see a good fight. The way the team has been playing against Barcelona, against PSV, and recently in the league, if Mendilibar continues with the choices he's been making and being logical, then I think we're going to see a real fight. Socrates, Champions League is out of our abilities. We did our best game against PSV and then managed to draw. Yeah. Better team, need a better team for the level. Yeah, not just that, we also need some better decision making, but it's going to get there, guys. It's going to get there. Question about El Kabi here. Looks worn out. Maybe he's getting older. Maybe the constant pressing is squeezing the energy out of him. You know, Martial brought up a very important point about El Kabi last week, and he's not wrong. He's not wrong. Martial's point was that El Kabi is getting the scoring situations. He's underperforming relative to his XG, right? And he's getting into the scoring situations, and it would be more troubling if he was not. And he's not wrong. Youssef El Arabi, his primary scoring opportunities were coming from penalties. Now, he was also underperforming to an extent, but it was a lot more even than El Kabi. El Kabi is over 4 goals underperformance, like over 4 goals. So, in a way, I completely agree with Martial. And of course, don't forget, El Kabi does way more press work than El Arabi did. El Arabi couldn't move by the time he was done playing for us. So I'm willing to wait. We're not pushing the panic button on anybody yet. We're just observing the trend. And the big difference is, of course, El Kabi does way more for us on the press than Youssef El Arabi did. That's for sure. El Kabi is certainly a faster player. So bringing it back, now that I've looked at some of your comments, bringing it back, the transfer situation has gotten better, but even though it's not perfect, right? And maybe while we're sitting here and we're talking about the transfers, maybe we give some grades. We look at this point to November, where season started in August. We're about 2.5 months in, almost 3 months into the season. How is everybody doing so far? Is it above and beyond what you expected? Are they performing worse than expected? We'll start there. And why don't we get started with our biggest money transfer, the 5 million plus 3 with bonuses. So 8 million transfer, Gabriel Strefezza. In the Patreon chat, everybody calls him Tsilulis. It's an inside joke, but there's a lot of disappointment with this guy. He's got 3 assists on the season. He's played barely 400 minutes. I don't think he's played more. I don't think he's played more minutes than Mehdi Taremi has. So, and some people look at that and say, well, you spent 8 million on a winger that your coach doesn't even want, so he's not even playing him. So I've got a little plot here for you for Gabriel Strefezza to have a look at how he's doing so far this season. For everyone that doesn't believe that Gabriel Strefezza is a Mendilibar player. Now, remember, he's got 3 assists so far this season. He's played about 400 minutes, so he hasn't played much at all. Not nearly as much as Daniel Podence and not as much as Gelson Martins. 3 assists on the season, the same number as Daniel Podence. What else does he do? Now, okay, he's not the one-on-one winger that Daniel Podence is or Gelson Martins, which we know a lot of you guys like. But that's not necessarily what Mendilibar cares about for everybody. Mendilibar this summer, when we were looking at wingers, wanted a left-footed left winger, a right-footed right winger. Strefezza can play invert on the left. That's where he takes most of his shots from. But we've seen him play primarily on the right, where he's crossing things in. And you look at the web here, and you see the things that he does well is a lot of the things that Mendilibar likes. One of our most accurate crossers. The most accurate crosser on the front line. Among the most interceptions in the league compared to all attacking mids and wingers. 1v1 dribbles to get out of pressure, yes. He's not taking on people like Podence and Gelson Martin running through 3 or 4 guys at a time. But if we're looking at Greece, he's among the most in the press, interceptions. Takes a decent number of shots. He wins a fair number of those duels. And this is all compared to people. He's in the upper percentiles for all of this. All of it. And that's what Mendilibar wants in a winger. So when the scouting department is looking, Mendilibar says, I want a right winger. I want a left-footed left winger. I want guys that can press primarily. This is his primary KPI, his key performance indicator. What is done behind the ball? Can he run the distances that I want? And how often can he run those differences before needing a substitution? How fast is he on the press? Can he sustain that production? Will he cross? Will he listen to what I want? Looking at the web, at least this is in Greece, of course, because he hasn't really played much in Champions League. He does do what Mendilibar asks. It's what he wants. And for the time that he's on the field, there's a couple of other data points with respect to just Olympiacos. He has the second highest expected assists behind Yusuf Yazici on the team. On the team. Second highest smart passes behind Christos Mouzakitis. So when you're sitting here complaining, okay, and the big thing is the price tag, I'll admit it. The price tag is the thing. But if you're looking at what he does, he's doing the things Mendilibar wants with the time that he has on the field. There is more that he can be doing in various aspects. I don't disagree with you. And for 8 million, a lot of you think that you're getting a Gelson Martins type of player that won't get hurt. But 8 million for this position does not get you as much as it used to. And this club, this Olympiacos, is not spending a flat fee of more than 5 or 6 million. Remember, the fee for Strefezza is 5 million plus 3 million in bonus. Olympiacos will not give more than 5 or 6 million for a player. They will not. That's the fact. We've seen it now, time and time again, year after year after year. So when we're evaluating Gabriel Strefezza, with the limited time that he's had on the pitch, he's done what has been asked for him. Now, there's another conversation we can have about Strefezza and whether or not he elevates the level to Champions League. And for the budget, what is a Champions League winger? Can we afford a Champions League winger? We have to find young guys and bring them in. Gabriel Strefezza was a guy we hoped, and there's still time. We're only halfway through. The guy is going to get better. He will. I am convinced he will get better. But if you argue that bringing in a guy like Gabriel Strefezza doesn't elevate you in the Champions League, well, who do you think would have? Borja Sainz, 18 million. Brian Hill, who didn't even want to come to Olympiacos, maybe. But those are amounts that we were never paying. Brian Hill, we had to wait till the deadline day to see if he got an offer to find out if he wanted to play. You want that kind of guy playing for Olympiacos? Daniel Vicente from Deportivo. He's basically a Spanish Masuras. You guys would have been freaking out if we had signed him. Václav Cherny, the guy on loan at Rangers, didn't want to come to Olympiacos. So that's how it is. The only other options we have were Cancellieri from Lazio, but Lazio wouldn't let him go. Left-footed left winger. It's very difficult with our budget to find a good winger. I think as time moves on, Gabriel Strefezza will prove to be, at the very least, more useful than Christopher Veld. I mean, he hasn't even played the same amount of minutes that Veld did up until this point yet. So if I'm giving a grade in November for Gabriel Strefezza based on what we've seen so far, while I disagree that many people think he's a Parton, he does nothing for the team, I see what he does. I see what he does behind the ball. I see the underlying stats. But even so, I'm not, for 8 million, you expect more at least in the league, but at the same time, Mehdi has to play him more for us to see more. So I think this transfer, for the moment, I'm going to sit on a B-, because you do expect that your 8 million euro guy is going to be played more. Part of that goes on the club. If the coach doesn't think he's good enough to play more, then maybe you wasted 8 million. But at the same time, Mendilibar has to play him more for us to see what his true value is. So in the end, I'm going to give this a B- because I see enough to where I'm not going to say it's a failed signing. I don't want to go lower than a B- because of what he does around the thing, but he also needs to play. And I think because we have seen enough contribution from him to warrant that he will do more, to make me believe that he'll do more, I give it a B-. Then there's Gustavo Mancha. Gustavo Mancha, I really don't know if we can give a grade yet because you haven't seen enough of him. Is that something that's a condemnation in itself? Maybe. If you guys had to force me to give a grade in the two major appearances we've seen from him, including the time he got the red card, I think he's looked okay. Better in the air than I expected from the scouting report. In the scouting report, I didn't think this guy could jump, but he's very good with the ball at his feet. He can move the ball around. Gustavo Mancha, for the moment, because we haven't seen much of him, I think I have to give it a C+, just because I like what I've seen when he's on the pitch. We haven't seen enough of him. And Mendilibar clearly doesn't trust him behind Pirola yet. He came in late. I'm not going to hold that too much against him. But I do like what I've seen with him on the ball. The red card was a bit stupid, kind of scary. So he gets docked a little bit for that. But I was pleasantly surprised by his ability in the air. I think he's better physically on the ground than David Carmo was. And I see a lot of the capability on the ball that David Carmo had, which we fell in love with. So for now, because we haven't seen much of him, I give that one a C+ to this point in November, even though we haven't seen much of him. Diogo Nascimento, the next one. We came from second division Portugal. And I remember the scouting report. People saying, oh, this kid is for Rio Ave. He's not good enough. And I said in the scouting report, this kid is extremely talented, extremely technical, box to box. If he can work himself in the press, if he can figure that out, he will do wonders for this. I didn't expect him to have a big role this season, but the kid had talent, and I knew either by the second half of the season or the end of the season, this kid would look great, and next season we would probably see the best of him. I think we're seeing better from Diogo Nascimento earlier than I expected. And anyone that thought this was a kid for Rio Ave, You're impatient or didn't know what you were looking at. Diogo Nascimento is the real deal for us. And while he may not do much for us right now in Champions League, I think he will the longer time passes. I'm really happy with Diogo Nascimento, even at 4 million. I'm really happy with how I see he can play for us. He's similar to how Chiquinho was originally an 8 when he came in, but Mendy uses him as a 10, box to box. We saw Diogo Nascimento play box to box, not as effective as Chiquinho, but can do it, has the stamina for it. And when he played further back, he looked great next to Mouzakitis, especially in the league. Really happy with that transfer, and it's a great scouted find. Now you understand why so many teams were interested in him. 22 years old, plenty of value for this at 4 million. Diogo Nascimento is an A for me as a signing. Lorenzo Scipioni is, again, that's a signing that's about 4 million, we said. From Argentina, this guy's a leg breaker. Absolute dog. Needs to calm down a little bit because he draws yellows way too much. Way too many yellow cards. Yeah, this guy's a walking ejection waiting to happen. But I love the aggression. He's a talented player. And we've seen just from his few appearances that this kid has the goods. I expected at the beginning of the season, I was like, maybe we'll see Scipioni and Heze. But the yellow card risk, at least for Mendilibar, I think is the issue here. Looking at his games, let's see how many yellow cards this guy has. Yeah, he's got 4 yellow cards on the season already in 357 minutes. So he gets the most. He and Danny Garcia generate the most yellow cards that you see so far on this team. A bit incredible there. So that's probably why we don't see more of Scipioni. But this kid's got the goods, and I think long term, especially if we sell Santiago Heze or even if Danny Garcia leaves, this kid will do more for us. So that being said, I am happy. I am happy with him. I expected he would be playing more to this point. He's proving to be more of a yellow card risk than I thought. So we'll give this one, I'll give this one a B+. I'm extremely happy. A lot of people are happy with what they've seen with Scipioni so far as well. Mehdi Taremi, 2 million euros, older player on the wrong side of 30. And has been disappointing in Champions League. Did not look great at all versus PSV. Was playing with injections for a while, with some pain. But this guy is, if you remove Roman Yaremchuk and the few minutes he's played, Mehdi Taremi is our most efficient goal contributor on the team. The most efficient, the same amount of non-penalty goals as Ayoub El Kaabi, and he's played less than half, almost a third, actually, of the minutes as Ayoub El Kaabi. Can't run as fast, probably can't run doesn't have the stamina to maintain the same distance on the press or the long sprints in the press that Ayoub El Kaabi can. But this guy scores goals, at least in the league. For a guy that came in and was basically coming in as a third striker, I think we've gotten some very good production out of him. 1/3 of the minutes of Ayoub El Kaabi, and he's got the same number of non-penalty goals. And he gives the penalties to Ayoub El Kaabi. He gives them to him when he probably should be taking them, to be honest with you. Although El Kaabi's actually been doing very well with penalties this season. Better than last season. But the point stands. The Champions League matches have been disappointing with Taremi. He hasn't looked great. But in the games in Greece where last year we struggled, couldn't get goals, dropped points needlessly, had difficulties in the cup, Mehdi Taremi scoring goals, and he makes it look easy. So while I am disappointed in the Champions League performances, for me, this guy came in as a third striker with Roman Yaremchuk, and he's scoring goals. So A-. He would get an A if he did better in Champions League. But I also can't hold the Champions League performances against him when so many of our players were terrible in Champions League, especially in the early matches. But Mehdi Taremi is, for me so far, is doing the job. I want to see more, but he's doing the job. A-. Remy Cabella. A guy, a 35-year-old that we brought in with Champions League experience, was not included on the Champions League list. Sparingly used by Jose Luis Mendilibar for a free transfer that's not making a whole lot of money. maybe you say, okay, I'm not super disappointed because he was older. He was always going to be a depth option. But the fact that this guy, you brought him in, he's not getting used by Mendilibar. It's not a good look. It's not a good look. And we can put some blame on Mendilibar for what he prefers in players. But, the fact of the matter is the guy's played 400 minutes and I think he has 1 assist. I believe it's just 1. So for a depth option that's not used, you can only hold so much against him if Mendilibar's not using him. Maybe he could have done something more for you in Champions League, but not a good look. So far, because of the use of Remy Cabella, the limited use, you can't give a high grade to this transfer. I believe in his quality, and I think he could have helped us. But if you have a guy that you're only going to use bit part here, he's got 1 assist in 400 minutes. I think a C- on that transfer is probably generous. Probably generous indeed. And then last but not least, Daniel Podence. Daniel Podence, one of the prodigal son of Olympiacos. He's back again. Prodigal son of Olympiacos, back on loan. Big wage. We're covering a chunk of that. I believe he's the second highest paid player on the team, behind only Ayoub El-Kaabi. And Daniel Podence has 2 goals, 3 assists in his time this season for Olympiacos. Does not track back well, we know that, but tracked back very well against PSV. Press did more than we've seen him do in ever, I think, in Olympiacos red and white shirt. So he's played about 1,000 minutes so far and 2 goals, 3 assists. I don't think anybody can say bringing in Podence was a bad transfer. You see how much he does for you in transition. And sure, even though he doesn't do as much work on the press, he can dribble through people. He can make something from nothing. So much what he does transitioning to the final third does not produce in terms of goal contributions. You have to look at various stats to see what he does in terms of numbers. But he's one of the primary reasons we have more creativity on the wingers and we can get other things done, even if he can't press. So that transfer, I think, gets an A. If I'm looking back at last season, now that we've gone through all those transfers, I don't think the outlook is nearly as positive, especially when you had multiple players that were gone by January. I don't think any of our guys that we brought in are gone by January, any of our transfers. Maybe we make some sales, but I don't think any of these guys are gone because they're terrible players. And that's a significant improvement over what we saw last season. And that brings me to second to last segment before we close up here, which is the winter transfer wish list. So based on what we've seen, based on what we have, we talked about the transfers, but we also have Benemonidis, who's played some first team minutes, Liatsikoras, who's played a couple of games. We like what we see from some of the transfers. How do we like the team on a whole? What do I want for the winter? Well, I'll start off by saying Rodinei, for me, is a winger now. I don't think he can play the fullback position. I would rather him just he's a winger option for us, can give us some more depth that Mendilibar trusts. And if we have to target anything in the winter, I would like a right back that will back up Costinha. I do not want to rely on Rodinei as a right back anymore. So that would be my first thing. My first thing would be that right back. Left back. While Francisco Ortega is having probably his best season ever for us in Olympiacos shirt, I would like to make a sale from the left back position and get a better left back. Whether we keep Ortega and we get somebody else that actually will compete with him, fine. I don't care. Bruno Nyamaichi he has some great physical traits, but doesn't have the technical abilities that Mendilibar seems to prefer. If you can get a sale for either one of them and then find a better left back with that money, I'm all on board for that. All on board. I believe that we probably do need a sale from the mid. We have a packed midfield. I would like a sale. I think right now is when you're going to get top dollar for a guy like Santiago Eze. If it were my preference, I would bin off Danny Garcia, but we know Mendilibar won't do that. But I think in terms of value, like the value's peaking with Santiago Eze. And if he goes, I don't necessarily believe you need to replace him, unless, of course, you don't trust Scipioni. But we have so many midfielders, and then we have Liatzi Koras for the B team. But I think you're going to see a sale there. Even if Rodinei moves to the wing position, I think it may be worth bringing a winger in, but as long as more sales are made. You know, maybe somebody else that can be more impactful, especially if we're not going to trust a kid like Stavros Pneumonides. The thing I don't want to see anymore is Chiquinho on the wing. I'm done with that. I'm absolutely done. But right now, looking at the squad, looking how things are developing, looking at Thursday, really what I would like to see more are upgrades at the fullback positions, and then maybe a sale from the midfield. That's where I stand right now. I'm pretty happy with everything else I see, and I'd almost rather, instead of us buying players, I'd rather us also promote some of the kids. There's some very interesting kids in the B team and the U19 that I would like to see more of. You know, if people were talking about getting rid of Taremi and bringing in another striker, I like what Bilal's doing in the B team. Bilal looks pretty decent there. That's not a bad one, not a bad trial I'd like to see. Colocotroni is a very interesting option right now for the U19. So there's not a whole lot, you know, in the winter, we were talking about lots of things. We needed a winger, had to have one. We needed one. We need a fullback because Ortega didn't have any help outside of Apostolopoulos, who was limited, as we all know. So there's not a lot of needs. There's more wants, except for right back. For right back, for me, I think is a need. Not too much, though. And if you guys have your own transfer wish list, drop them in the comments. Let me know what you guys think. I also forgot to mention, that there's a poll, because I was joking about the Alafouzos Panathinaikos interview that was going on with Sport 24 before I went live. Based on the nonsense you've heard, the deflecting and the unwillingness to accept responsibility, that type of ownership means Panathinaikos is probably going a lot longer than just the last 15, 16 years without a title. So my question to you is, in the poll, how many of you, what do you believe, when do you believe Panathinaikos could ever see another title? So that's the question I asked all of you in the poll in the chat. So let me know. Let me know what you guys think. Let me know. And before we go ahead and continue to move on here. Nicholas, Patriot Nicholas Simigis, we want Danny or Heze gone so Mouzakitis can play. Mouzakitis should be playing either way. He won the Golden Boy Webb Award for a reason. This kid's amazing. He really should be playing more. And regardless of whether Heze and Danny Garcia come back from injury, he should be the first name on the team sheet. Arispan making a suggestion here from Atromitos. I like Zadilas from Atromitos. Quite raw still, but has an eye for goals. Could be one for the future. He could be. It's a very interesting take. Very interesting take for sure. Guys, I'm almost an hour in here, so it's tiring, I should say, to talk to all of you guys when it's just me here. So we'll move on. You guys got kind of my opinions on where the club is, the state of the club for now. We talked about the academy situation last season with Martial. If there's developments, we can revisit that maybe next week. But before I go ahead and close up here, I wanted to share some thoughts with Greece beating Scotland. Greece, as you guys that may have seen, beat Scotland 3-2 yesterday. Looked great, dominant in the first half. Pavlidis got injured. Andreas Tete makes his debut for the Greek national team, and then Scotland comes back in the second half in a big way. They look like a different team, pressured us, probably should have scored more than they did. We end up winning 3-2 after what was very tight, very, very close. And there were a lot of things that happened in that match. The scoreline, again, it's not so much that I give a shit about the scoreline with respect to Greece. It's more so that I care about some of the messages that I saw there. As you guys remember, Bakasetas got called back up again, even though we don't have any more chance to qualify for the World Cup. So this was a game where I had hoped we would see more of the younger generation, since we had nothing to play for anymore. I wanted to see more from them. And while it was nice that we beat Scotland and we looked much better, especially in the first half, I didn't like seeing substitutions on, like, the first sub. Okay, let's ignore the injury sub. Okay, the first sub was Tete. The first sub was Yorgos Masouras. Bakasetas gets a red card. He gets called up again. Hatzidakos came on. I think he got subbed on for Mouzakitis. Brought another defender on, and then at the death in the 90th minute, the same time that we bring on Hatzidakos, that's when we finally see Babis Kostoulas. Tsimas didn't get called up. Disappointing. We didn't get to see any of that. And the thing that annoys the living daylights out of me with respect to what we saw here is the old guard, and I've said this many times, the old guard failed. Bakasetas, Courbelis, who started next to Mouzakitis, they failed. It's done. Yorgos Masouras, who Olympiacos guy, but that generation, this generation of the national team has failed. We didn't qualify for anything. We haven't qualified for shit. In now it'll be over 10 years. Over 11 years. It's going to be 12 years, assuming that we do qualify for the Euro Cup. It's horrible. It's horrible. And then you now have dead matches, rubber matches that don't mean anything. Chance for you to see guys like Nektarios Triadis. Time for you to see guys, see what Babis Kostoulas can offer you. See what guys like Tsimas, Stefanos Tsimas can offer you. Both of our kids that are playing in the Premier League. And Ivan Jovanovic, in his infinite wisdom, just throws out the same guys over there. This is the time where you tell the old guard, guys, fuck off. Thanks for the memories of qualifying for nothing, but it's time for the next thing. It's time for the next thing. And you might not like Jovanovic as a coach. You might not like the disrespect sometimes towards some of the players. But for me, it's time for me to move on. It's time to move on to the next thing. Time to move on to the next thing. Mono's G7. Mono, buddy, if you missed the beginning of the show, it was something that was tested out for the first time. You don't have to do the vertical live stream. You can pick the landscape if you want. There's two versions of this that stream. The vertical is supposed to be better for mobile. So we experimented with it today to see how it would go, but you can switch to landscape if you want. So, but this was supposed to make it easier, better for mobile. Anyway, going back to the national team, the whole thing I find to be really frustrating. I'm happy we got to see Mouzakitis start. I'm happy that Panos Retsos got to get a run out too for the national team, because I think that he's better for us than Mavropanos. But I'm still annoyed with what I think the direction is. I'm still annoyed that we're putting faith in guys like Bakasetas, whose time is done. For me, it's done. That his time's up. Him, Courbelis. Give Triadis a shot. Let this guy play. Bring some of the other guys up. Bring them. Kostoulas should have had more playing time in this game. Tsimas should have been brought up. Our U21s look great. You should be giving them. Why am I seeing Manolis Siopis's name on the team sheet? I should not be seeing it. I should not be. Why am I seeing Petros Madalos? Even though he's probably he's having a better season for Ike. Why am I seeing that name on the team sheet? Why? They failed. This generation failed. Oust. Take this time, the time of dead matches, the time of friendlies, and see the new kids. Let's see what the new generation, what looks like a golden generation has for us. Move on from the rest. It's time. Thank you guys for tuning in. Another solo show for me. This is Adi from Thedos International. Guys, I forgot to do it at the opener. I'll do it now. Thank you again for the support. Thank you guys for those of you that voted for us for the Football Content Awards. Thank you. I will be in Leeds this week. My flight leaves tomorrow, so I'll be leaving. Not tomorrow. I will be leaving Tuesday night. I'll be in Leeds Wednesday, we'll say, and then I'll be there for the award show on Thursday. So really excited. If any of you, I know we had a couple of followers that were based in Leeds. So if you guys are out there, I'll be there with Dimitri. So would love to chat with you guys. Love to hang out. But anyway, let me know for those of you that are Leeds based. If you're around, I will be up there this week. And then we'll be back hopefully this week with Greek Wednesday. You have Martial Monday for the patrons coming out. Check out Patreon if you're interested in the extra content or joining the WhatsApp chat where we get into all sorts of nonsense. Visit us at patreon.com/Thedos7 International. Hey guys, I know it's tough. These days are tough without Olympiacos. We have to suffer through the national team and international break, but they will be coming back. Olympiacos will be back on the 22nd of November. We play Atromitos. I believe we host Atromitos, if I remember correctly. And then things will be back. So we've got about less than a week until we have club football again, boys. So thank you all again for tuning in. I'm out of This is Thedos International, by the fans for the fans, and we'll see you all next time.